Welcome to the PwC Business Success Podcast. With me today is Kesh Naidu, a partner in PwC and also the client and market lead. Welcome, Kesh.
Thank you so much, Frances. Appreciate it.
So, Kesh, tell us a little bit about your role at PwC.
Well, we all cover a few roles. My core focus is clients and markets leader for consulting and risk services, and largely focusing across all our industries and our key clients. But I also serve as a strategy and leader for the business and sit as a board member on our innovation and technology company. So covering a broad spectrum of items, but focused predominantly on solving our clients' problems.
So, a very busy and a very knowledgeable man. So today we're talking about the integration of marketing and communications with operations. And I know you have a lot of expertise in marketing and client relationships and so on. So what do you think the effect of marketing and operations working in silos will be on the success of the business?
Well, I think it's quite a fundamental relationship to get right. Because if you look at the two different components of the business independently, I look at marketing, and let's include sales in that, as the component of a business that one identifies future customers and current customers and clients, but also is the team that makes the promise to the market and the customers out there. And the operations environment are the teams that ensure you deliver on that promise. So when those two elements work together, you get magic. And clearly when they're disconnected, you get frustration, and that comes through on customer complaints, inconsistency in products, pricing challenges, and so forth. And we see this across the spectrum, and it's why it's fundamental to actually get this right.
So how do you think customers can avoid those type of pitfalls?
Well, I do think from an organization standpoint to their customers, there's a multitude of things that one needs to cover. One is the understanding of what promises you can make and how you deliver it is super important. I think for each one of us, whether it's related to your cell phone contract or any experience from a service provider, when you're buying it, there's a degree of excitement because ultimately, I think the products are marketed in quite a positive and proactive way. But when the promise is not delivered is when customers really get frustrated. So service delivery, customer experience is equally as important in these journeys. And what I would say is from a marketing and sales perspective, the way in which you price and you make that promise is important, but the way in which you deliver it is equally important. The execution of that journey is fundamental.
So marketing and operations really, and let's just define operations a little bit. It is the meticulous maintenance of a well-organized house.
Absolutely.
It creates order in a business, and if marketing then works with operations and they are in sync, it can only help the business grow. So one of the things that I always talk about is the company setting the vision with the input of marketing, and then operations will operationalize whatever the objectives and the strategy of the business is. Do you agree with that?
So for me, I do agree with it, but the nuance of it ultimately is when you bring it down a level, it's the execution component of it, which is what you're highlighting. We often see the intent and vision are strong, everyone gets it, but I always say for a CEO, the two biggest challenges is one, when you set a strategy and vision, there's dissonance in the organization. And what do I mean by that? Is when everyone feels, yes, let's go for this, but they don't believe it. Saying and believing are two very different things, right? And then two is in the execution of strategy. And we find a lot of organizations get challenged in that specific area because of capacity, the way in which the business is constructed. And as you've said, is getting your house in order is key and fundamental to actually deliver on that vision.
Yeah, I've actually researched it in my last research and have proven empirically that there's no correlation between business success, any of the measurements of business success, and how much companies spend on strategy. It's the operationalization of strategy that actually brings the business success about. So.
And I think it's intuitive. I mean, to a large extent, the institutional knowledge that executives hold together with their teams directionally, there's a degree of agreement of the vision and the direction a company should go. Yes, there is aspects where you need to think about business model reinvention, and that requires a different mindset of thinking. But in the execution side, that's where in my view, the investment needs to be made to make that a reality, because that ultimately moves the organization into growth, and through that you can actually reinvest and scale a business.
So in order to set the vision, you really need to know what the customers require. I always say customers won't separate or part with their money if the pain of not having your services is not bigger than the pain of parting with money.
Absolutely.
So that brings about the buying decision. So it's really important to know what the customers require. How would you go about finding out what the customers require?
Look, across different industries, there are different approaches. Naturally, you get the standard approaches, which is around surveys, customer engagements, sentiment analysis, social media analysis. You also will get the aspects where if you analyze complaints in call centers, the feedback mechanism in organizations, it requires quite a diverse ecosystem of feedback to really understand what your customers are actually saying. But two is, you should think about other components of your value chain that equally are able to understand what customers are saying. For example, your suppliers. I think we forget to engage the full spectrum of one, sharing the vision of what you want to achieve with your suppliers so they get the standard and quality you want to deliver, but they also engage with customers through a very different mechanism as well. And there's other examples of that, but those are the sort of foundational elements and areas one should consider.
You know, they say money only enter the supply chain at the end customer.
Yeah.
So it's important throughout this entire supply chain to keep the end customer in mind.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a golden rule at the end of the day. But, if you look at the sales and markets environment and operations, to make that end customer happy, there has to be a mechanism and way of ensuring that those two components of a business speak to each other. So often we find in governance structures, sales and operations planning is a fundamental because there's biases in the way companies can forecast demand, and generally an optimistic bias, and then suddenly the production guys have to deliver on it. And when that gets disjointed, you have an unhappy customer.
Exactly. So it really is a circular process where marketing speaks into the vision and the strategy of the business. Operations then operationalizes it, and then marketing gets involved again to communicate the offering to the customers and staying close to the customers.
Yeah, and the disciplines that go with that are equally important, right? Because one is understanding it, and as we said, the other side is delivering on it. So from a marketing perspective, equally there is understanding the sales capability. How do you communicate with customers? On the operations side, it's really about efficiency. So all of that, when tied together, does equal success. But at the end of the day, you need those two functions actually to integrate properly. Otherwise, you operate in silos. And I think that's the premise of what you started off with as well.
Absolutely, Kesh. This is a topic we can speak all day about because it really encompasses everything, every part of every business. So, but I think we've laid a good foundation as to alerting people and our viewers specifically to the need for integration and not working in silos. And I think we can do a second recording at some stage. I hope
absolutely.
You're up for that.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for watching the PwC Business Success podcast. Then watch out for the next one, which will be on costing methodologies. Thank you very much.